Shadow of the Erdtree is going to be the biggest expansion FromSoft has ever made. These are the words from Bandai and FromSoft directly, and the reason why they're committed to this being the largest is that they wanted to meet player expectations after the successful release of the game. And based on that statement, how long it's taken for them to make this DLC, and how good every other DLC was, it's safe to say this is going to be a very good expansion. And with the little time I had playing through the DLC, I can say that with confidence. I didn't really go as thorough as I would have liked to in terms of exploring everything and appreciating it all, because obviously based on yesterday's video, I was doing a lot of testing. Now, if you're looking for a brand new experience that's nothing like the base game, this ain't it. It still very much plays exactly like Elden Ring, same open world formula, similar enemy, level, and weapon designs. Even the scenery has very similar themes. The gameplay loop is running through an open world with little paths here and there to explore, run through an occasional dungeon, then you work your way to a legacy dungeon to fight the main Remembrance boss. And all of this is perfectly fine because the quality of it is very good, and at the very least, better than average when compared to the base game. Obviously, we have already covered how cool the spells and weapons are, but all of the unique enemies and their interesting interactions, like this big fire giant dude, just makes this seemingly barren wasteland feel very intimidating. These weird fucking things, I don't even know how to explain them, and I probably won't. I'm not gonna spoil it. Fighting them made for a very funny experience. But in terms of the legacy dungeons, I got to explore two of them, Bellarat and Castle Ensis. Both can be accessed right at the beginning, so you don't have to clear out one to access the other. Now, Bellarat is what you see here on screen. Feels somewhat of an in-between of Lendel and Stormveil. Has the cool interconnected levels with nicely placed shortcuts, lots of locked doors that require opening from one side or keys, which is very much like Stormveil, but it also has the thematic feel of Lendel due to being able to fight upon rooftops, going down to some sewerage areas, also fighting these really challenging knights. Fuck this guy, by the way. He is like so fast, runs incredibly quick, does a lot of damage, insane poise, lots of health. Like, he's pretty fun to fight the first time, but like when you see like 3 or 4 of them in this one location, it gets pretty tough. Every DLC has to have them annoying enemies. Yeah, this is definitely one of them. Now, as for Castle Ensis, unfortunately, there's like no gameplay for this. I guess mainly because there's like a bunch of reskinned enemies here. What reskinned enemies? How could they? Yes, it's perfectly okay. Every DLC has reskinned enemies. It was to be expected, but it is going to have the enemies of Karyamana and Raya Lucaria, even including Moongrum. He has made a return, but this time he's not parrying, so it is okay. But this area doesn't seem to have as complicated level design as Bellarat. Doesn't really have many branching paths. It's not that long, not many secret areas. However, Souls fans will be pleased to know that it can wrap around in a circle. Yes, peak level design. But in all seriousness though, it literally feels like going through Karyamana or Raya Lucaria in terms of theme and in length. Now, as for the bosses, there are 2 Remembrance bosses that I fought and beat, one in each legacy dungeon. This fire giant guy, by the way, is not a boss. There was no boss health bar, but they do drop crystal tears. The way that you fight them is basically playing around the stance break. You're going to be doing really bad damage to him, but if you just keep hitting both of its legs until you do the stance break, of which one, he does have a lot of poise, so it is going to take a while. But afterwards, he is vulnerable to a riposte or critical attack, of which will do over 50% of his health. So after this 2 stance breaks, it's basically just a GG. In terms of his attacks though, it's nothing but stomping attacks if you're directly underneath him. And you can just jump all of these attacks as well. And no, you do not have to be on horseback to jump over them. He does do this one big jumping AoE attack that you can't jump over, but I did just use the horse spawning iframes to counter it. It is a cool interaction, but I do see it being tedious if you had to fight it multiple times. This lion dancer guy at the end of Bellarat is one of the more cool and unique boss designs with a really good OST that I'll probably let you guys hear right now. Now, this is a very challenging boss that does have somewhat long and complicated moves. Some of them actually can be pretty hard to distinguish. However, you do get lots of openings and some attacks can even be strafed. I fought this guy with a charged heavy attack colossal sword build and I had very little problems getting off these longer attacks. Now, this guy has like 3 phases that he can randomly switch in and out of. Just the 1 health bar, but he has this normal state, a phase where he summons rain and has like these insane lightning attacks. Also gets a really cool snowstorm phase where he can start to develop these insane frost AoEs. Even this attack you see right here, which is very hard to dodge, by the way. I tried jumping over it, didn't work. Maybe I just suck. But this attack can also turn into a frost AoE. But both of these 2 crazy phases are just purely cinematic because you hardly get any openings and you kind of just have to wait it out for the most part or just trade. But one other thing I did notice is that he doesn't really dodge projectile attacks, but he can close the distance pretty quickly if you do try to heal. And based on my time fighting him, this guy doesn't seem like he has much poise, probably about 100 to 120. The boss at the end of Castle Ensis is known as Ralana. I don't know why we keep having to stick with these stupid naming systems, like please. It's getting worse and worse. Like, I obviously wasn't allowed to talk about this boss for the past couple of weeks, but even if I did tell you guys that there was a boss in the DLC that is the sister of Renala, and her name is Rolana, no one would believe me. But thankfully, her fight is a lot different. It takes place outside in this boss room right here. I don't know why the first trailer shows this knight being here, but this is identical to the Rolana boss room. It's a somewhat small arena with a large circular pool in the middle, and the fight does take place outside, and it randomly has a chance to rain. Sometimes you walk in the boss room, it's raining, sometimes you walk in and it doesn't rain, which typically does not happen in a Remembrance boss fight. But it does make it so that lightning damage is really good here. Now, she does fight with dual light greatswords. She gets one of them infused with magic and the other infused with fire, but only when the second phase starts. And you'll know it starts because she actually starts to buff, which this buffing animation does give you an opening to hit her. There is no cutscene for this boss at all at the beginning or for a second phase. But as for her moveset, in both phases, it is very similar to like Pontiff from Dark Souls 3. She has very quick attacks, somewhat longer combos. She can shoot out these magic wave attacks that are similar to like the Elden Beast holy waves. She can also summon this big fire tornado. Now, as for her openings, they are not that long at all, and she cannot get staggered on hits like you can with like Millennia. So my strategy with charged heavy attacks did not work here. I had to switch to lightning spell spam, which made very quick work of her. Because one, she doesn't dodge projectiles at all, like 0 input reading, and she also doesn't chase you that hard, so you can quite literally keep running back and spamming projectiles. Now, this really won't fly as easily in the second phase as she'll spam a lot more spells, like a double moon attack. It's basically identical to Renala's full moon, but there's 2 of them, and instead of tracking towards you, it slams the moon on the ground like very quickly in this massive AoE that covers the entire arena. It definitely caught me off guard, but you can jump over these. And from my guesses, based on how much I was fighting her, she has like roughly 100 to 120 poise. But overall, I think both boss fights are very cool and cinematic, but just like most other Elden Ring bosses, they're going to take a while to master. Which this kind of leads me to my biggest criticism of the DLC. Everything is going to require effort and a lot of it. I wanted to play with all the fun stuff, but so many enemies and bosses hit really hard, have lots of poise, give you small openings. So just experimenting wasn't really something you could just do. Kind of had to resort to using these really powerful stuff, which is not a problem, but if you're going to design a DLC that has all these really cool things to test and play with, it would have been nice to throw some cannon fodder in there. Just a bunch of like test dummies to really like try and figure out what I like or not, at least for like the first part of it. Now, I know I'm a person that does level 1 runs and no hit runs, and I'm complaining about difficulty, but I would like to use the fun mediocre weapons and not hate myself while I'm like trying to learn these bosses' movesets. At least not for every single boss. FromSoft has made plenty of good bosses with easy to read and easy to counter movesets, so I do hope there's at least a couple of them in here. Now, being that the DLC is hard, what level do I recommend? I am going to say 150, which that is the level of the characters we had prepared for us. But honestly, go as high as you want. There isn't going to be such a thing as too high. The new leveling system of which I talked about yesterday is going to make it to where level doesn't really matter much. And also, there's going to be lots of spells and weapons with really high requirements. So if you did want to play with all of this stuff, I would just recommend being at a higher level. Just whatever you do, please have 60 vigor. Like, these guys really hurt. They really do. The DLC is going to be just as unbalanced as the base game. There will be lots of ways to be OP, but also lots of enemies that act like it don't matter. Now, I know I'm going to get lots of questions asking about how big it all is. It's very big. Now, obviously, I only got to play the first few hours, but I did look over some cliffs and I see lots of grass down there. It's probably going to be an easy 20 to 30 hour experience for the average player. There is an area after Rolana that I did take step into. I was told I was not allowed to go that way, but it definitely seemed like it was progression. And as the area past the lion kind of leads to a dead end because there's a very big locked door, but you'll probably come back to that location later on for potentially the final DLC boss. Because if you look up, it does look pretty badass. It looks like there's going to be a boss there. Now, as for my single biggest regret, I forgot to kill the NPCs. I had it in mind and I just forgot about it. You basically see all of these NPCs very early on. You see this girl literally right at the beginning, standing next to Mikola's egg. I should have killed her to see what she dropped, and I didn't. I forgot. I'm sorry. All I know is that first things first, when the DLC drops, I'm killing her. I have lots of characters to spare. I'll sacrifice one of them just so I can find out. By the way, she actually is wearing her helmet. You don't actually see her face when she's actually just standing there next to the egg. And also, this NPC is also a female. Anyway, that's everything that I wanted to talk about. Yes, I didn't talk about the story. That's because I was too busy testing out all the weapons to really like read and listen to everything. Vardy and Smotown are your guys for that stuff. Go to them. They're going to explain the story way better than I ever could. But closing statement, it's going to be another classic. It's going to be good. There's no other way to say it. But yeah, once again, there's going to be lots of small stuff of which I didn't really go over. Otherwise, this video will just go way too long. But you can just follow me on Twitter as I'm like progressively just updating people on all like the small findings that I did have. And you also can join the Discord or follow me on Twitch if you wanted to ask more questions directly. Anyway, catch you guys around. Bye.